You're listening to Games from the Cellar, where we play board games and then talk about them. I'm Steven, your host, and tonight I join John, Chris, Sam, and Jeremy as they played Illimat. Illimat, designed by Keith Baker and Jennifer Ellis, was first published by Twogether Studios and Wyrmwood Gaming in 2017. At the time of this recording, Illimat has a 7.3 rating with 849 ratings on BoardGameGeek and has a ranking of 2796. It's a 2 to 4 player, low to medium weight game that should play in about 30 to 60 minutes. Thank you for joining us in the cellar as we go in depth with Illimat.
Today's game is Illimat. John, can you tell us a little bit about this game? Sit back and enjoy the show.
It is your game, John.
It is my game, and Illimat's it's pretty much a card game, but it's got some crazy stuff going on in the middle of the table. So you have this piece of fabric in the middle that breaks the board into 4 pieces that they call spring, summer, autumn, and winter.
So the seasons.
Thank you. Yes, and cards
are
played out into these 4 separate sections of the boards, and the idea is to make match sets.
The fields.
The fields, correct, and it kind of has an agricultural sort of theme to it. So you harvest and you sow and you stockpile
based on the season that you're playing into.
And the idea is to claim cards, and the idea is to claim certain cards. Some cards pay you points, some cards cost you points. You play until the deck runs out and your hands run out, and then you all total up. And there's some ways you can get some bonus points as well. And probably the more interesting part of the game is there are these big fancy cards that kind of look like tarot cards, at least on the back. And when you turn them over, they have a special rule. So halfway through the game, somebody will empty one of these 4 fields out, and you'll turn the card over that's on top of it. And it will say something like, this field cannot be winter, because the 4 fields can actually change what they are depending on what happens on the board, or other some such rule. So it's a game where you can have the best laid plans, and suddenly either a new rule pops up, or the field that you were planning on doing your rule in becomes the winter field where you're not allowed to do anything. And after you throw your cards across the table, go over, pick them back up, and sit back down, you go back to playing, and the idea is, frankly, to score 17 points. And that takes a few hands to do. The game plays in, maybe half an hour, 40 minutes, Chris?
Depends on how much backstabbing there is.
That's true, because you can kind of block other people from doing well. And when our experience with this game, and we have a getaway, we call it the May getaway. We all go out to
May Gameathon.
The May Gameathon. We go out to a beach house, and we just sort of play games. And when we first learned the game, everything was wonderful, and we thought, "Oh, isn't this a clever little game?"
A neat little
figuring
game.
Everything out, and then we started figuring out how we could ruin each other's day. And maybe an hour and a half later, we were just, we had to remove the silverware from the table for fear that somebody might get hurt. And so there's a lot of opportunity in this game to stick somebody and to give them the card that you don't want to have in your hand, and to force them to do things that maybe they don't want to. And that's just sort of the nature of Illimat. So it has this sort of wholesome, organic look on the table, and then you play and you just realize, oh wow, this could be a real grudge match game.
Yeah, I remember coming downstairs. I was looking for breakfast, but you guys had this on the table, and it just looked really neat.
We poured you a cup of coffee, and you joined in.
It definitely has a presence on the table. You lay out this cloth mat, you set up the cards, you set up the little stones to track your points, and it definitely has a very...
it has a look all its own.
There's a copper tooth sitting on the table right now.
Yes.
And it uses the box as a game component, which it's not a very common.
It's neat.
Yeah.
Frankly, it borrows touchstones from the occult, I think, is what it does.
There's a little bit of tarot to it.
Yeah, they look like tarot cards. Things are laid out in quadrants very specifically. There's a lot of symbolism going on.
Yeah, and I got to be honest with you. I think whoever did the art for this had not played a modern game, and nobody told them That it was supposed to be bright colors and medieval.
Oh no, I don't think so. I think this is
thing.
exactly. I think they got the vibe they were going for.
Oh,
exactly.
I think right, exactly. I think they got the vibe they were going for, but it does not look like other games. From everything from having a cloth board, there's a lot of black and white. Even the colors are kind of muted. It pulls in the Four Seasons, and like you were saying, it's got sort of that tarot, sort of mystical feel to it. And the little brass pieces that, in spite of we have a tooth, a fan, a little sailboat, and a little guy out, they're all worth 1 point. They all look different, but they're all worth 1 point. So they put them in for some variety. But other than that, they really don't. They don't affect play, other than reminding you to count them at the end of the game.
I don't know if the rest of you feel the same way, but I'm seeing this game. It's all set up. We're ready to play, and I'm hoping that after a turn or two, it kind of kicks back in, because I don't know if it was because of the way the game turned out after we had played it a couple times that I've kind of blocked it out of my sight.
It's coming back to me, but I'm definitely going to have to be going through the rules as we play this one, because it's a complicated game. It's, I suppose, easy to learn, hard to master. There's 3 different actions you can take, and 2 of them are very simple.
But you're playing with combining cards and that sort of thing. So there's some number magic.
There's a lot of number magic is a good word for it.
Yes.
So with that, I think we should get into it.
And let's see what we can do.
See what the cards have in store for us.
Remove the silverware and remove the whiskey from the table.
Are you ready, Jeremy?
Yeah, I've never played this before.
Are you excited?
I mean, it looks unique.
It looks interesting, doesn't it?
I don't understand what's going to happen yet, but
you will.
Let's see.
Okay.
All right, Fancy Flux is done.
And we are back from Illimat. We have played, we have came, and we have conquered.
Is this spoon sharp enough to plunge into Sam's neck?
Yeah, Sam definitely got the ire of a lot of people with this game.
I didn't even win.
Sam just kept getting all of the fools, which are the powerful card that you hope to get. They're like aces in poker, and he just kept drawing them. So good for you.
I think the frustration there, and why this becomes such a volatile game, is because Illimat is this really neat math puzzle where you're looking at the board and you're trying to figure out how the numbers fit into the cards in your hand and how you can scoot them around and what the combinations are.
Yeah.
And that's true if you have high cards. If you don't have high cards,
you are a spectator.
It's a very frustrating game where you just play out your cards to let the guy who's having all the fun keep doing things.
You need a nice blend. You need some high cards, and then you need some low cards that you can stage something that you can go after and grab.
Yeah, if you have a hand full of nothing but high cards, you're sitting pretty. But if your highest card is a 7 or even all the way up to a 9, you're just sitting there going, well, I got to be careful where I play this, because I'm going to play it somewhere, and the guy with a 14
going to turn it into a 14.
Yeah, somebody else can swipe it away. And to a certain extent, I think as much as you got all this rigmarole on the table, it's very pretty. But fundamentally, this is a card game. This is kind of like International Rummy, where you're sitting there and you're moving things around to make up the sets that work for you. And I think that's the heart of it. It's creative, and it does it in its own way. I don't think I've ever seen, and I've played a lot of card games, and I don't think I've seen anything that works exactly like this. But the summer, winter, spring, autumn, and the cards that bring in the special rules, those are nice kind of add-ons. But fundamentally, I think this is a card game. And like Sam was saying, if you get beat cards, then that's a hand that you're going to be doing a fair amount of watching and not so much playing. And you do well when you turn bad hands into okay hands, and when you turn okay hands into good hands, and that's where the creativity
it is. But there's a lot of frustration, I think, when you have a bad hand.
And I think that is what happened to us on the first round. The game only lasted 3 rounds.
We went 3 rounds and we were done.
3 rounds and we were done. The first round, I think Jeremy and I, did we both score 0?
I think you may have.
Yeah, I didn't score any points.
I almost understand how the game is played.
That's right, because you lost 2 points for winter.
This is your first play.
I ended with the game with 2 points.
Yeah, but to be fair, you made some very nice plays at the end of the game.
At the end, yes.
Yeah. So your third hand in, you had a handle on the game, so you can't complain about that.
And to be fair to you, the 3 of us played this game enough that we were sick of it back in May.
Angry with it, I think, more than sick of it.
It's funny because you said you've had 3 plays.
Yeah.
So now we've had 4. I mean,
so this is the 4th play, but and
it's nice you throw in a little new blood.
Oh, absolutely.
Changes the whole game.
I was innocent, and you ruined it.
And at no point did I want to plunge this spoon into your neck.
It
Because
was
when you,
all the
when
ire
you
was
put
at
all of the
Sam.
winter
Frankly,
facing
I
me.
felt unsafe.
Well,
And-
I would like to point out the table order plays a lot on this. So John has no animosity towards Jeremy because Jeremy is in no way
Right, because he's
set
right
up
before me.
to steal anything that John sets up. Where Samuel, on the other hand, is sitting right after John and can steal and did steal and does steal every move that he
Right,
made.
and sometimes
Is
you
that
feel
talking
more
about game
frustrated when somebody steals your stuff. I mean, you.
When statistically, there's how many fools are in the deck?
5.
5, and you had all of them.
I drew 3.
He was
and
dealt
got
3 the
4.
first round, right?
I was dealt 3 of the 5 fools, and when I say dealt, I mean in my opening hand and also pulled
And
from
in
the
your
deck.
draws
And you
later.
In my
always
draw,
had either
I got 3 of
a
the
10
5
and a
in the
4
first
in
2
your
rounds.
hand, so
Yeah.
that you were always making 14.
Yeah, I spent the first 2 rounds making piles of 14 that I was the one who picked up.
And to be fair, I think we did a pretty decent job of getting that field turned to winter just to slow him down, if nothing else.
Oh, you mean in the last round?
No,
I had.
in the first round when we turned that
No,
one.
I didn't even notice.
No, it was in the it was the second
second
hand.
round.
The
So-
second
so
hand, we
effective.
managed to slow him down a little bit.
I didn't even notice, but yeah.
We
Then-
saw the frustration in your eyes when there was like 8 cards there you could have picked up.
Oh, I don't remember.
You blocked it.
Yeah.
All I did was try to get the most cards, and you didn't even let me have
Yeah.
that.
Sorry,
That's
and there was a
worth 4
tiebreaker
points.
at the end that was broken by
And-
who had the most.
and the play out of the cards in this last hand. And actually, I think I started out in second place. I think you got like 8 or 10 points on the first one, Sam. I had 7.
I
I
think got
think.
6. I don't
yeah,
remember.
it was
wasn't
playing
that
out
many.
just like the last game we played, where first, second, and then we were
Right, and-
tied.
Yeah,
for
and then
third.
Chris
But then the last hand, I ended up literally getting all 2s, 3s, and 4s. I kept drawing 2s, 3s, and 4s, and we're in a game where you're trying to add up to the card that you're playing. Having 2s, 3s, and 4s, not only does it mean that you have 2s, 3s, and 4s that you have to keep under, but that means that those cards aren't on the table because they're in your hand. So I just it was
And I had
one
all face cards,
right,
and
so,
like
so
a
I was
7.
just feeding people
Yeah.
out by throwing down these low numbers, and they could just add them up. Oh, I need a 2 and a 3 and a 5, and then I get what I want.
I don't know how
So-
it happened, but the stars definitely aligned on that last round. When I was able
Yes.
to take all 4 ochres, I got 2 of the luminaries.
When you got 17 points. In
Yeah,
the
so-
last
so
and I
Chris-
round.
got 12 on the last
12,
one.
12 points in one hand, which is stunning.
Of the
7 on-
17 he needed to win in the last round.
Yeah, 7 on round 2, and then 12.
Yeah.
And
Definitely.
it was very close to the point where we almost had to switch seats. And I'm sitting there going, I've already got 2 fools. I've got 3 ochres. I do not
And
want
if it
Sam
hadn't
to
have
move it
been
to my seat.
winter,
Yeah.
I would have done it.
Okay, so explain the switching seats because
So that's
out of context that makes no sense.
So there is a rule in Illimat where it's one of those.
And
once,
this is one of these weird onesie rules
yeah,
that comes
it's like
up from
once
the draw
in
of
a
a
million
card.
games. There are 4 fields. When you clear a field for the first time, you flip over a special card called a luminary that changes how the rules are played for that field. If all 4, and then the next time the field is cleared, you remove that luminary, and the player that gets it scores a point. If all 4 luminaries are revealed at the same time,
So they're revealed and they're still up on the
yes,
board.
and
Nobody's
and
grabbed them.
none of them have been claimed. You stand up, and everybody walks around the table in a circle, and you sit down at the seat of the person next in line
and
to your
you
left.
get their cards as well.
You trade hands, you get the points. You essentially are now playing from their position. Whatever points they had, whatever cards they have, you take nothing with you.
Did any of that happen? I mean, because like I said, everything was
point
kind of
there
aligning. Were you hoping that would happen? Because I was.
No, I did
okay.
not.
I
Because
was.
I thought I was doing all right.
would've
I
gotten
had
all, like,
11.
2s, 3s, and
I had
4s.
11 points
And he
to
would
your
have
7.
gotten negative 4 points or
No,
whatever
no,
for
We
that
would
turn.
have all turned.
We would've all
Right.
turned.
He would have gotten my score.
Yeah.
Oh,
Chris would have gotten my score, which would have been.
Well, it would have been
Well, I
swapped
made sure
entirely.
that didn't happen when I took
Yeah.
that card
Because
off the board.
honestly, if that had happened, we would have had to get more plastic silverware to put on the table because it would have just everybody.
Yeah.
We
would
would've
have
got the plastic
no
knives.
plastic silverware.
Yeah.
No metal.
I would have
silverware,
been content.
Yeah.
No silverware.
So,
Yeah,
Chris,
and
and
an empty
I had not
aluminum can,
realized
you could
what a good
probably leave. It's
position
kind of hard
you
to
were
hurt
in.
somebody with it.
I was expecting you to do well. I was not expecting you to score 12 points.
Yeah, that is clear by far the best hand we've ever seen playing
Yeah,
the
you
game.
got
Yeah.
all 4 of the Ochus. You
Yep,
got
I kept my mouth shut.
luminaries.
Best
and
one I've
everybody
ever
was mad
seen.
at Sam.
Right,
It was
because it's fun to be mad.
It was
tell.
great to be mad
I
at
could
Sam.
I could
Because
tell
normally
like
we're
I was
mad at
being
you.
beaten on, and
And
Chris
I was just letting it happen,
coasted
just
to
doing my
victory.
thing, grabbing another okra.
Yeah. I mean, I tried a couple. I know I fed you a couple things. It was like I need something to shake up. I'm going to switch the board and give Chris something, but hopefully that switches things up, and then I can make a move. And it didn't happen because you'd take advantage, and then nothing would.
There was just
appear.
like 3 or 4 times where it's like, oh, I can empty that field.
Yeah.
Oh, I can empty that field.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So big picture, this is a pretty unique game. And it even looks kind of unique. It doesn't look like other things, and frankly, it's inexpensive. It's a card game with a couple of little bits and pieces. I think this might be $24.99 or $29.99 at the discount houses. It's you're not going to spend a lot of money, and frankly, you can fit it in your glove box. So it's the kind of thing you can bring along. If you want a game that like somebody's going to kind of eyeball as they go by, I might not bring it to church night because it looks an awful lot like a tarot deck. But other than that, I mean, it's the kind of thing that it's a very different play. So from that perspective, I kind of recommend this game, even if at times it is sort of infuriating.
Yeah,
but I suppose I've played bridge when I've had bad nights too, and I'm looking at my cards like quit being so mean to me, and that's just the nature of a card game. Sometimes you have stunning hands, and sometimes they're terrible. And
I have friends who would play this game based off of aesthetic alone, just because it looks cool.
Yeah.
I also know people who would not play this game because of the way that it looks.
Right.
And
because of the hours of atonement they would have to do afterward.
yeah, and that's just. But it's a fun looking game. It's interesting.
It's when you get to the end of the 4th round, you have to bring out the Ouija board.
Yeah.
Yeah,
It gets a little awkward.
Yeah.
You have to bring in the fortune teller from,
And
from
the
the
blood
other
of the
room.
goat.
Yeah, that's inconvenient. But that said, I liked playing this game again, but I don't want to play it again tonight.
Oh yeah,
Like-
I would not. This is not a game to play 2 or 3 times.
Play it
in the same
again
night.
tonight with you, Mister. This is a math puzzle. I don't have time for that.
It is a math puzzle.
I would
Well,
play
it's an
this
addition
with a
puzzle.
different group
Yeah.
who's not as
and-
big brained.
And that's what happened to
We
us.
need to play with more
in,
stupid
in
people, Jeremy.
Delaware.
Yes.
When
Yes.
because we played this like we had to be 7 or 8 times.
I know I played it like 4 times, and I think I backed out.
And we
so that
kept
Cody
playing.
and Kevin
Yeah.
could come into it, and then John backed out of it, and I think I got back into it.
Yeah, and I think this came out late. This was like last day.
Yeah.
Because I left a little early, and
No,
I left
we
the game
brought
behind.
this out
On
Saturday
Saturday
morning, and then
Yeah.
we played it again on Sunday.
Oh,
And
maybe
first
that
it was the
was-
3 of
played
us. We kind of
played it
figured it
until,
out,
like,
and I think
noon.
it was Kevin joined
Yeah,
in.
we got in hours on this thing.
Yeah.
so
Yeah.
it sounds like this is like the curse of knowledge game.
And
The more
No,
you-
it really is. 'Cause-
The more you play it,
so what ended
the
up happening
worse
Exactly.
it gets.
they all played it a bunch of times, and my first time playing it with them is when they figured out how to be dicks to each other.
And
we
I
had
played.
figured that out well before.
And
no.
my
Gino
first
us?
time
Not to
playing
the
is
degree that-
now.
Because like the second time we played, Cody was like, "Oh, wait a minute, this is how this works." He's like, "Oh yeah, this is gonna be great," and it was like. It was sniping like from there on out. It was just
Yeah.
like everything I can do to just screw it up for you. That's how it's going to be. And it was. I'm sitting here like I kind of liked this game. What's happening? It was a completely different feel from the first to the second
we
game.
discovered that on your when we started, it was on your turn. You could take cards off the board or add them somewhere and try to build something for yourself. And then at some point, decently early in, right, we realized that setting up yourself up on the board was not a good call because that just meant that you were setting everyone else up to do something.
You were announcing,
right?
This is
so
good
it
for
wasn't,
me, and
it just
everybody suddenly
wasn't-
goes on
we
defense.
went through this a whole game where I'd set something up for myself, and it would go around the board, and then right before my turn, Kevin would take it. A whole game, every time. I
Right.
was so mad.
Yeah.
That sounds right.
He had exactly
It
the
was
right
just
card.
Kevin. It was every time. So we realized
Get your spoon.
instead of setting yourself up, you should play in the least convenient place possible. Just poison the board. Put your card somewhere where it won't do anyone any good. And we went from having games that were over in like 2 or 3 rounds with the fields being cleared and the cards being revealed and whatnot. We went to games going like 6 or 7 rounds with like a ton of cards still on the table just because nobody could pull them off.
Everybody playing defense.
Yeah, because everybody was playing defense.
So, but I got to be honest with you, I haven't played this game since last May, and I came back to it, and I was, I'm joking about the silverware on the table. I was expecting to be more mad than I was, and even this last round where I was pulling bad cards and people were swiping stuff out from under me, I'm like, okay, so I guess I came into it with expectations set appropriately. Is that this is a game where you can really kind of stick it to your other players. It didn't. I didn't feel as. I mean, this game sort of had a cast on it until we pulled it out tonight. Now I'm like, okay, this is a game we could pull out every 6 months.
I mean, you can pull it out every 6 months and play it one time,
right?
Because if we played it again, we would all kind of remember all the stuff, and it would turn to
So you think that's the case? You think it would? You think it would get more
You
brutal?
almost have to forget the rules a little bit.
I think playing, if we played again right now, I think there would definitely be like a pall cast over.
I don't think it would finish in 3 rounds. It would probably be 4 or 5.
And to be fair, I thought we were going 4th round for sure.
I thought so
fact
too.
That you really
right. But,
had a good
but
round.
like I'd remember that Chris would in no way do as well because I'd be looking at it. Oh, Chris can clear a field. I got to put something in there so he can't.
Yeah.
Well, there was time that I was able to get.
You looked up and saw that he had those 4 tokens, and you're like, wait a minute, when did you get all 4 of those?
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. So I think you weren't even really aware of how well he was.
He was playing
doing.
quietly.
You weren't aware of the game state.
I lost
so
the game
well.
state. I paid attention the first in Splendor. I did not pay attention in this one. It's because John was over here threatening to stab me in the neck with a spoon.
That's the best part of the game, though. It's just so much fun to get
angry.
angry.
The table talk, and
I
fear that it put into your eyes.
I didn't keep my eye on the birdie.
So let's, when we do our ratings, let's leap to the conclusion there are no sharp objects and no alcohol on the table when you're playing. Given those 2 caveats, what would you rate this game?
Like I said, this is a game I enjoy. It was a great round. It was good because the first round sucked. I mean, we were struggling mighty hard. And, I had a good round, and I was able to take the win. But it's not a game that I would pull out every week. So I'm going to give it barely a 7.
Jeremy?
I would play it again. Like I said, nothing against you, but
he's looking at Sam.
I would play with a different group of people that aren't going to analyze it in the same way.
What's the point of playing a game if you're not going to analyze it?
That's the way Sam plays
because
every single game.
And that's
Sam plays slapjack that way.
And I can't. I play games so I don't have to think.
You mean you play them for relaxation and ways to decompress? I know.
Crazy
it's just
concept.
I mean, I play them to relax and decompress too. I just enjoy
the strategy
and
the competition,
figuring it out.
Maybe we should have whiskey on the table when we play with Sam. We'll just let him get a little bit soft, and then we'll play the games, and we'll see how much better he does. His turns will certainly go faster.
Yeah,
doubt it.
Or they'll go slower because the numbers are a little more foggy and not as easy to.
Right. He'll move from integers to real numbers.
I give it 7 winters.
7 winters.
7
in
winters.
the hopes that it turns to spring eventually.
Wow. That was profound.
Poetic.
I have to follow that. Holy cow.
Well, come on, follow
so
that.
I'm going to be honest with you. I came in thinking I got to give this game another chance because I kind of was drumming my fingers the last time I played. Tonight, I had a lot of fun with it. Even though I had some bad cards, I'm like, okay, but the game is working and things are turning out the way they want. So I think this slid right back up into 7 territory for me when I was concerned that it wasn't going to.
Yeah, and like you said, while the game is highly analytical, it's not so analytical that you can't have conversation at the table.
Right.
So while all this is going along, we're still, basically having a good time with each other. We're enjoying each other's company. It's not so heads down and counting because you're only counting up to 14. And even, the Mississippi Public Education has set me up to be able to count to 14.
As long as you have your socks off.
Well, I mean,
Fortunately, only on one foot.
on one foot. Lawnmower accidents, whatever. So
I don't think
Technically, we go to 15.
yeah. So it's nice that you're still able to interact with players in a way that's fun and communal. So I think that in that it still is a good game, and it still reaches its purpose.
Yeah, this is a game to not take too serious.
I agree, and I think I said that a few times. I was like, you guys are thinking too hard about this game, right? Just play a card. You can
play the card I want,
and not even the card. Just play a card, right?
Yeah.
So it's definitely
Just
sort
play
of thing
something
where
that adds up to 14.
Just play something that's going to benefit me. It's fine.
That's not.
It doesn't matter what you play or what's in your hand. It's going to be good for me.
All right,
just put it on the board.
Let's give Sam a chance to rate this.
Man.
Did you rate it? I did. I told you.
He said it
right back into
slid
7
right back
territory
into
for me.
7.
Okay. I missed that.
So, I think because if you take the game too seriously, you do get into that negative headspace where you're just like, I can't do anything. I'm just setting up the other guy. I'm going to poison the board. And when you do that, I think it just drags out the experience and makes it overstay its welcome. And it's really easy to do this. So you do kind of have to play this one fast and loose, right?
Yeah, and it's curious. We played Splendor right before this, which is notoriously quiet and stoic, and it's a lot of counting small numbers too. And then we played this one, and obviously we were much lighter and kind of making noise and that sort of.
And you could play this like you did Splendor, and in fact, that's what we did in Delaware. I remember I was on you guys because you would just like everybody, right? All 4 of us, you just take your turn in silence. I'm like, say what you did. I don't know what you did. I don't know what cards you played. I don't know what cards you picked off the board.
We did that on
your work.
purpose.
Show it. You show your work. Say it out loud, and like not just because people are bad at math, although people were bad at math several times and picked the wrong cards up, but just because it's hard to be aware of what's going on the board, right?
Yeah, and narrating your turn is the most basic form of keeping table chatter alive.
Right, yeah, but people did not want to talk. And I think that's part of why we got so frustrated with it, because it was just...
People reaching over, grabbing a stack of cards, and like, whoa.
Yeah,
Then
it was-
you check them out,
back up,
and it's
let's
like,
have a look.
I can't do that. But it's kind of hard to put it back into the game
Yeah.
state that it was at the beginning
and
of
I'd
the
say not
turn.
just the math, but in this game, if you play a face card, you need to change the box in the middle. So
Yeah,
it's nice to call out. I played a Queen of
it's-
Summer, so that everybody can
and that's something
understand
everybody
it.
seems to
welcome.
forget.
And
Jeremy,
and,
you were all over that. Good
right.
job.
You're welcome.
And people help turn the box and
Because I
repopulate
needed
fields
the
and
box
things
to
like that.
change.
But
Yes,
it
exactly.
just helps if people say what they're doing.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah, and this is a game where talking comes naturally. So I think.
Well, I mean, it did this time, but in Delaware, it was like pulling teeth.
Well, but Delaware is a sales tax free state. All the rules are different there.
Whatever. I enjoyed this game. I like the way it looks. I even like the way it plays. That said, it's not a game I would play regularly. I would enjoy it as a novelty. I want to own it because it looks neat, and I have friends who I think would enjoy the aesthetic.
Makes
But
a lovely birthday present.
I would struggle to rate this more than a 7, I think.
Okay.
I think we mentioned at one point about the addition of a sand timer to this game would be something that may or may not be beneficial. I mean, the box and the art and everything is it's black and it's white.
I just feel like it would fit the aesthetic, like a nice, solid black and white hourglass.
But I'm
where
not
you
sure
flip
that
over.
it needs it. There weren't too many speed bumps. There weren't too
I
many
agree.
times.
There weren't too many speed bumps, but I think it fits the aesthetic, and I think it would kind of fit to say, you can't think too long. You got to go to match the theme of the game. You got to get the crops out into the field. You can't tally too long thinking about the how and the where and the who. Just pick something.
I don't know this particular play. I don't recall that being an issue when I was.
It
playing Delaware.
was an issue a couple times before where you
I know
just
I sat
there
and got stuck with analysis
Well, there's-
paralysis.
It's not like you were taking 5 minutes to play your turn. I mean,
Right.
it was taking you 60 seconds instead of 20.
Yeah, it'd have to be like a 15 or 20-second
Right,
timer.
and to be honest, I know I was the one who mentioned it, and I do think it would fit the aesthetic of the game. I don't even like timers like that in board games because I feel like they add too much overhead in
and they're
remembering
stressful,
to
and
flip
you're
it
not,
over.
You're not here to be stressful.
And then,
right, and then you have to wait for it to empty.
And
in
at
order
some
to flip
point,
it.
Yeah.
someone's
just
going to
get 4 of them.
forget.
And
Every
you're going to
time's my turn.
forget, or it's like, oh, well, I'm still trying to figure it out. It's like, what would you say? Tough luck. This is your first time playing the game, but we're going to penalize you. I just think it would really fit the black and white aesthetic. That's all.
Okay, so never mind on the sand timer.
You know what
Yeah.
else
Yeah,
is
no
All right.
sand timer. Doesn't need a
But
sand timer.
it could be useful for people that are prone to AP and need that little push.
But if, like I think he says, is it does match the aesthetic.
Another gaming problem, easily solved with tequila.
Wow.
See, I think that goes the other way though. Like
Yeah, but no.
once I start getting loose, I start.
No,
like,
no. I don't mean for the player that's got the problem. I mean for the other players at the table.
I think if you start adding that, this needs to be plastic instead of fabric.
Right, because it will get stained. That's true. All right. So,
All right, so everyone's rated the game. It's a very pretty game. It's novel.
Yeah, and
It's novel. Exactly.
If you want to give somebody something that looks very different from everything else they have, and you only got a few bucks to spend, Illimat may be a great choice. And I realize it's not Christmas time, but it's a neat little game that plays differently, plays in half an hour, 45 minutes most of the time, maybe an hour.
Yeah.
And it's going to have a different look and feel. And by the way, we did play with the expansion, which doesn't make a whole lot of difference. It just gives you a little bit of variety and some
Didn't
of the
it come
special
with it
rules.
automatically?
We
or
played
what?
with the
I actually had to purchase
expansion, and I
separately.
didn't
But
know.
the expansion I think is like
Yes.
$4.99. It's a few cards. It's not a big deal.
Yeah, it adds a few more luminaries to choose from.
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
And that's Illimat.
John, Chris, Sam, Jeremy, and I thank you for joining us in conversation about Illimat. You can join us in conversation by visiting our website, cellargames.com, where you can find links to our social media and Discord server. We also have a blog and a guild on Board Game Geek. We look forward to hearing from you.